Welcome to Virtual Book Tours. This is episode 1. This is a complete experiment, version 0.0. It's less than 1. We're just scratching the surface here. We've got 4 authors coming to you from Hong Kong and from the US. And so it's 8 p.m. here in Hong Kong. It's 8 a.m. sort of New York time. And the basic idea for this is we've all written books. We're all kind of self-published authors, or although I think actually Diana is a bit more mainstream. She kind of went the traditional route. She can sort of compare that to our journey. And the idea is to basically try and share like what it was like to write a book. So the format is going to be each author will get about 10 minutes to talk about their book, what it's about, why they wrote it, how long it took to complete, and did they ever think that they were going to be an author? Because I think we're all unanimous in that we never thought we were going to be authors, and so maybe this might inspire some new ideas from people that are watching, and we can give some tips. That this is live streamed to Facebook and YouTube. People can type in their questions. We'll be monitoring those, and along the way, we'll try to answer as many ad hoc questions that come through. And maybe give some tips to aspiring authors. What technology did we use? Any lessons? Any trial and error mistakes and things that went on along the way? And we'll kind of explain how we know each other, because to me that's also interesting information. And over time, collectively, we know a lot of authors that have written books. And so the pipeline for the next year is very straightforward, without thinking too hard. And if anyone has suggestions for people that would like to be on the show, just reach out, and we're happy to accommodate over time. So I'll open this up to the rest of the crew here, and we'll make a start. Welcome, Diana and Gail and Chris. So maybe start with, where are you? Maybe let's just follow the same pattern in all of this. The sequence is Diana, Gail, Chris, and me.
All right. Thank you, Peter. I'm calling in from Hong Kong tonight.
And
Gail?
Thank you, Diana. I am from Waukesha, Wisconsin.
And I am in Louisville, Kentucky.
And I'm in Hong Kong as well. So we've got 3 Americans versus 1 Australian. That's one other little side note here. It's all good. We'll make it work. Hopefully we can understand each other's accents over time. So does anyone have any questions, comments, just before we kickstart? Because we'll get Diana to go into her book whenever you guys are ready. So Diana, what is Future Proof and why did you write it? And, tell us all about it.
All right. Future Proof it's a book about adopting more agile mindsets and practices to prepare for success in a fast-changing world across a 100-year life. And I wrote it in 2019 because I wanted everybody to know that the world was going to be really volatile and uncertain. And lo and behold, this has come to pass. So what I wrote about it at the time was, the good news is that the future of work is not a clarion call for our demise. It's our magic portal to balance the rhythm in our lives. We can adapt our job-based mindset and evolve the skills needed to keep pace and keep peace. So it's a funny thing to have not exactly predicted where we are now, but I think right now, post-pandemic, so many people are re-evaluating what they want from work and what they want from their lives. So it's been a fantastic journey of writing it, talking about it for a year, and then talking about it a lot and talking to companies and individuals for all of 2020. And I feel so grateful to be here with you guys and to have written it. For people who want, I would say, the motivation to write a book, for me, it was a lot of people who were asking me to sit down for coffee and saying, Diana, what do you think I should do? And it started with young people who came up to me after the TED Talk I did, which is where I met Peter Williams. And they were asking, is this it? Like, what can I do in terms of my work and my life? And all the way to people in their 50s and 60s who I taught at the Financial Times Board Director Program, who were coming up and saying, I've had massive success, but I know I'm going to be working for a lot longer in my life. And I feel like there's no way that I want to retire now. I have 20 good years. Retirement age is making me have to leave my corporation, but I really want to keep contributing and go from success to significance. So really it was a way to avoid over-caffeinating with what ended up being so many coffees with people. And I was going through my own transition as well, really thinking, is this what I want from my life? Flying around, being a corporate exec, trying to fit in my 3 kids, and I love working. So to me, it needs to be incredibly fulfilling. So one of the things I love doing in my work is writing. And for those who are aspiring authors, I would say I have probably a disappointing story. But the one piece of advice I might give you is get help. So when I had a project that had ended abruptly, I thought, I really wanted to write about the things that I'm seeing, future of work. And I had spent years kind of emailing to myself interesting articles. And so I had a whole spreadsheet, beautiful mind, like Post-it notes on the wall. This is interesting. What's going to happen when the work changes? How are we going to deal with, globalization, all these different things. So I had that opportunity. I knew I wanted to write a book. I called around and ultimately went with a book development editor at Scribe, and they met me every single week for 9 months. It was like my coach. It was like my personal trainer. Mm-hmm. And I had to do it because I had people that were that I had to meet. And so I would just go through it bit by bit, and they helped me edit it and market and distribute. And because I'm in Hong Kong, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't in this bubble of, the only people who cared about this were me and my 5 friends. So I also really valued having somebody on the outside to say, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that really resonates. So I did that in 9 months, the actual writing and editing. And like most first-time authors, then realized, wow, I should have started marketing like about 18 months ago, and I just finished it and I'm thinking about marketing it. So for the next one, I think that it would certainly be important. And you have my tip, which is to get help. You can maybe go faster alone, but farther together. I think you can go faster together if you're writing a book. And I've now turned mine into a course as well, and a community of people who are really in transition and trying to get more significance in their life through Future Proof Lab. And you can find out more about the book and my writing at dianawoodavid.com, and more about Future Proof Lab at futureprooflab.com. So, Peter, do I have enough time to read a little bit, or am I out of time?
Do it.
Right. So it is about the future of work, but it's really about connection. And so much of the conversations and the value that I have with you guys is about human connection. So I thought I'd read a little bit about that. And this is Fortifying for a New World of Work. Connection is one of the most rewarding investments for fortifying ourselves in today's volatile and rapidly changing work environment. We shouldn't take human connection for granted on a professional or a personal level. Many people fail to remember to invest in important people in their lives because they're just too busy. As David Matten, global head of trends at Trendwashing, says, modernity has atomized us, tearing apart the traditional bonds of family and friendship in pursuit of constant productivity and economic growth. In the 21st century, automation and AI will both obviate the need for much human labor and create conditions of even greater and more disorienting change. The practical conditions are in place for a turn back to one another. In the past, there was a reliable structure provided by neighborhoods, churches, and our families. These environments offered a sense of belonging and connection because we were all in the same place. Many members of my family still live in the same town, as do the majority of my high school alumni. Work itself has provided a structure for me for relationships and water cooler conversation. So that seemed to be a good little snippet for our water cooler conversation of this evening.
Yeah, that was really helpful. And so do you have another book that you're going to write, or are you just saying in general, if you were doing another one, you'd do it a little bit differently? Like, do you have a title or something that you're working on?
Well, I have been writing quite a bit for magazines, Fast Company, Inc. I have something coming up in Harvard Business Review. And of course, writing for Chris and other people who ask me to. I would really like to continue writing about the future of work from an organizational perspective as well. I do a lot of work with companies, and I think it's really interesting what's happening. When I did this book, I thought, oh, I'm going to look at all these different companies and see what they're doing to help people, really go into this new future of work. And there wasn't a lot going on, but now there are some amazing things going on. So I'd really love to write that book when I get the chance to.
I've got one idea that you might want to play with, and it's kind of an extension of what Chris has done and something I'm thinking about as a follow-on project as well. All the people that you mention in your book, you could ask them to write an essay about their perspective of future of work or whatever it is, and that's an easy thing for you. You just need to coordinate people to do that, and I'd be happy to reflect on what you spoke about and what's happened since and so on. So that's an idea.
Yeah, that is a great idea, and I know so many people that are great thinkers in terms of future of work and where we're going. So thank you, Peter. Yes, I'll get right on that.
And then I'm going to do the same thing where all the people I mention in Productive Accidents, I say, hey, how about you write, your perspective? Like, we've met, and then we've kind of got this common sort of vocabulary now. What does productive accidents mean to you? Where have you seen them in your life, et cetera, et cetera? And again, that's an easy extension. So so two new collaborations potentially in motion, and we haven't even. It's only 15 minutes in. Doing pretty good. All right, thank you for that. Are there any questions that have come through, Chris? Or I don't know if you're watching the live.
No, there haven't.
No, that's cool. All right, shall we go across to Gail?
Okay.
Yeah, let's bring Gail on. There you Gail. Welcome, Gail.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Peter. That was lovely, Diana. Thank you for sharing. I would like to start out by thanking Chris and Peter for helping me to write a book. Without the two of them and Productive Accidents, I still might be just posting a daily newsletter. So I am incredibly grateful to the two of them. I met Peter through the Akimbo workshop, the Creatives Workshop, and then he introduced me to Chris, who introduced me to his editor, Nusha, and those connections gave me the courage and confidence to pull together a number of essays I've written over the last several years into a book. And it is called Wandering Words, Walk from A to Z. And it was inspired by, thank you.
You're welcome.
By a gift I was given a number of years ago called the ABCs of Life. Okay, I'm having trouble getting it straight.
No,
we can see it. We can see it.
Each chapter is titled like the plaque. So accept differences, be kind, count your blessings. There's a story for each one of them. And I feel very gifted to have had a life with being a stay-at-home mom, lots of time out in nature with my dog and my child. And these are stories from my life and my observations. So basically, I tend to be more quiet, and this was a place for me to take everything that was going in my head and put it someplace where someday maybe somebody would find it. Like Chris, I lost my mother when I was young, and I think maybe one of the driving forces was that I did not know her well. And I have a 20-year-old son now. He's not really necessarily driving on my stories, but maybe someday he will look back and he was like, oh, that was my mom. So how this book might be relevant to a reader, in my opinion, is we all see different things as we go through life. Yesterday, I went with my husband. He ran a half marathon. And as we were walking into the venue, it was just amazing what he was picking up on as compared to what I was seeing. Like, I was noticing the scenery and the things that, and he was Ironman, and whether or not they looked like they were a good athlete. And so as a very curious person, what I am exploring through my writing is these different perspectives and how we connect to one another and how we can really learn a lot from each other and build each other up. So as far as the process, as I already mentioned, I did a lot of this writing years ago. And then in 2019, I participated in the Creatives Workshop. And so in 2020, after meeting Chris and Nusha, the editor, I was able to pull the stories together and self-publish by using a platform called Vellum, which takes all of your Word document and you can format it beautifully and then upload to different platforms like Kindle, Barnes & Noble, Nook, and you can also set for a print version. And I'm not used to talking maybe for 10 minutes straight, so I
can help with some questions.
You don't have to. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
I would be happy to do a little bit of reading from the introduction.
That's a good idea.
Oh, yes, please.
From the book, and then I would like
I'd love to hear it.
If you guys would ask me some questions. So, from the library shelf, it whispered, "Pick me. Who was I to refuse such a request? For books had chosen me a time or two before and changed me for the better. And so it was that the Wander Society by Carrie Smith and I traveled home together. I saw myself within the pages of a book filled with wisdom on walking and self-awareness. I have been wandering almost daily from an early age, often with a foreleg by my side. Falling into reverie while surrounded by nature affords me space to explore the content of my mind. Who are you? Why do you think that? Where did that idea come from? Why are you afraid? What do you love? Who might you become?" In the spring of 2016, I came across a writing challenge, 100 naked words. I was intrigued. Could I write 100 words per day? What would I say? What might come of it? I began with a sorry little story that wore all of my labels: name, age, marital status, nationality, and occupation, or lack thereof. The first 2 paragraphs of the post showed a tiny flame of potential, though. Here goes nothing, or possibly everything, as I offer up my first post to 100 naked words. I would like to thank Johnson for allowing me to contribute to what promises to be an interesting collection of work. I am starting today with some simple demographic facts to give the reader some insight into my writing perspective. It is not my goal to help anyone. It is my goal to offer a viewpoint that is uniquely mine. Some will agree and others will not, but I hope all readers will try to see the world as I see it. Empathy is underrated. I set out on an unexpected road of transformation, changing my life and therefore the lives of others. A woman who didn't think she had a creative bone in her body found she had a few. So
Excellent.
Thank you. The journey from, I never thought that I would be a writer. I started this little challenge of writing 100 words per day, and it has been life-changing. So you never know, once you open yourself to something new, what productive accidents might come your way.
Completely agree. And what I really liked about, well, the Creatives Workshop was basically a virtual class, effectively, right, that you're doing, in your part-time. And the way I think about it is the idea was to create a 100-day streak in whatever you were trying to create. So if you're a poet, pick up your pen every day and write a poem. If you're a musician, pick up your guitar. If you're trying to finish a book, pick up your laptop. And for me, I literally drew, a 10 by 10 grid of on a piece of cardboard beside the bed. And if I picked up the laptop for 5 minutes or more in a given day, then I put a dot in a square. And 100 days later, I had the draft for the book and everything else. But after that whole Creatives Workshop, Gail has formed this little subgroup called the Hedgehogs. And we've been having Friday night Zoom calls for about a year. And Gail is the one that just sort of sits there listening, observing. And then she brings out the wisdom at the end. But you're the driver behind that, which I think is magic. And at one stage you said, I went into a coffee shop this week and I met an 88-year-old gentleman and he was really interesting and I'm going to go back and interview him. And I said, well, my dad's 88. Maybe you could interview him as well. And I think the woman in Ireland said, yeah, my mum's at 88 or something. I said, well, why don't you do an 88-year-old series? And then that became a project. And then I connected you to my parents and you interviewed them and turned that into a poem. And anyway, all this magic kept on happening. So thank you, Gail. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Peter.
All righty. We're kind of at 8:25. I reckon we could talk about what Gail's been doing for quite a while, but maybe we'll save that for the end and we can switch over to Chris.
All right. Thanks, Gail.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm Chris Palmore, and the book that I'm here to talk about is Dear 2020. Dear 2020 came out of, basically wouldn't have come out if I hadn't written the book Dear Gratitude, an anthology. So last year, speaking to Gail's 100 words a day and Peter's 100 days, it's the same thing with me. I had my mentor basically said, why don't you write 500 words a day for 6 months? So that's a little more than 100 days. It was 180 days, roughly, where I just sat down and said, I'm going to write whatever for 500 words, at least 500 words every day. It could be repeating the same thing. It could be just ramblings. It could just be thoughts. It could just be what happened, old stories. But the amazing thing through the process is, what my mentor told me is like, well, at 6 months, you're going to have a lot of stuff. Some of it's going to be good. A lot of it's going to be crap. And you're going to know if you want to have a book or not. You're going to know if you want to be a writer, from spending those hours. So through the process, at the same time, I had met Peter. I believe I had met Gail during the same time. And then the final key to my process was when my friend Bobby Kuntz introduced me to his editor, Nusha. That was actually, honestly, was the turning point in everything. I needed, back to almost what Diana was saying about having partners. Finding her as a partner allowed me to take, it was such a leap of faith. I gave her like 100,000 words to read so she could come back with me and go, what can we do with this? So who are you going to meet that's going to sit down and that was going to, would actually do that, right? For one thing. And then who's going to have a mind enough to come back and give you ideas? They want to go on, take that forward too, right? It's a big engagement. So the beautiful thing of that was that she came to me and was like, what if we had people write letters and gratitude that we could put in the book so you can share your story? Because I realized I didn't want to give people this big autobiography because people don't know Chris. People don't want to marry Chris. They don't know me. I just want people to date me. So that's why my story, which was initially like this big thing, became, let's make it this. And then the cool thing was, because I got to add in over 50 people's stories, it became this. So this is a piecemeal thing where you don't have to sit down and commit to reading, this is, I guess, a 10-hour read. You don't have to. You could literally pick up, read for 10 minutes a day. The cool thing is it becomes like a part of a daily gratitude practice. So you get to read a little bit about my story, which is all about gratitude. You get to read people's other stories all about gratitude. So pivoting from that, obviously, the beginning of the year started and I was like, you do a book, you go, what's my next book going to be? That's the great thing about one thing, it leads to another, and it was December. So that book came out, officially released the day before Thanksgiving. So on the Tuesday I got married. No, sorry. On the Tuesday I got married. Now I'm doing this right. The Tuesday the book came out. Wednesday I got married. Thursday was Thanksgiving. And then I got to go away. I got to go away to Florida with my dad and my wife in December, and I got to think about what do I want to do this coming year. So I had time to decompress, let the other book sit for, it just came out, let it sit, didn't have to think about it. And I was thinking, what can I do? So within that time period, because my mind was opening up, I had many ideas, and one that came back to me was something that was actually part of Dear Gratitude. One of the writing prompts I had talked to, but my editor was, what if we engage people to talk about this last year? What if we engage them to talk about COVID? And at the time she said, I don't think that's a good idea. I think we're kind of in the middle of this. I think you should kind of, kid glove that idea. And I was like, okay. So, December comes around and my friend Kevin Monroe shares this amazing letter by Emily Lloyd titled Dear 2020. And when I read her letter, it just moved me. It literally moved me. I was just caught up in the beauty inside of the drama, inside of this perspective that she gave me. It was so powerful, right? And at the same time, Peter had turned me on to an author named Elliot Dolan, who was a terminal cancer patient, who literally wrote a blog titled "I'm Not Going to See the End of Lockdown." And inside that, I have right here, he, just to quote him real quick, this is from somebody, and this was posted, I believe, after he passed away. So he wrote this in his last week of his life. He wrote basically the 5 things that he wanted to leave to people. So first, this is the first one. It says, first, the importance of gratitude. During my worst moments, the shock of cancer diagnosis and the mental lows and debilitating symptoms of chemotherapy, it was difficult to picture any future moments of joy, closeness, or love. Even so, at those times, I found comfort in remembering what I have, an amazing family, the friends I've made, and the times I've shared with them, the privilege of a life I've had. So with those 2 things in mind, I go, okay, well, I don't want to have a book about COVID, because this isn't about COVID. This is a book about perspective. Any year we have ups and downs. Any day has a spectrum of colors. And that's why the idea of saying, Dear 2020, what do you want to say to the year? Not what do you want to say to COVID, not what do you want to say to January, not what do you want to say to my mother or, the person this or that or the weather, right? It's like, Dear 2020, what do you want to say to the year came up. So from here, with my time left, I would love to say one of the amazing things that came out of that is the 3 people that are with us wrote letters to 2020. And I would love to spend the rest of my time here starting with Gail in the order we have these people on the right-hand side. So I'd love for Peter to read his letter to 2020.
All right, let me find the page. I put a little tag here. So here we go. I haven't read this out loud before, so let's see if we can do it smoothly. 2020 started as a year to celebrate 3 significant milestones. I was turning 50, celebrating 25 years of marriage to the gorgeous Catherine. Her maiden name was May, and the 10-year anniversary of completing business school at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. In preparation for 2020, I had created a list of 50 things to do before turning 50. And a little side note, that was inspired by a woman, Lyle Barmby, that I met while hiking Kilimanjaro a few years earlier when she was turning 60. When I think she just turned 59. She said, okay, before I turn 60, I want to do 60 cool things. And so that's where that inspiration came from. Item number 1 on my list of 50 things to do was to complete the book that I had been living and writing for several years. I kind of had the content for about 6 years. And the title is the book that we're talking about today, Productive Accidents, a Playbook for Personal and Professional Adventure. The key idea for the book was discovered during business school and extended after graduation. Briefly, it shows how a framework for curiosity and creativity can also be a recipe for innovation and a lifetime of adventure. Productive accidents, or you could call it serendipity, can become predictable and repeatable. The list of 50 items also featured a series of travel adventures, including a trip from Hong Kong to attend South by Southwest, which is the annual film, music, and startup festival held in Austin, Texas. Next was a trip to Australia to ride in the Tour de Rocks, a cycling event that raises funding for cancer research. We also planned travel to Japan to see the BMX and skateboarding events at the Tokyo Olympics. And our fourth trip was going to be to the awesome Fuji Rock Festival. Business school reunions were also planned in Singapore and Hong Kong. But then COVID-19 struck harder than expected, and all of the events and travel plans were cancelled. Focus shifted to working and schooling from home and making sure our children and extended families were safe, particularly since we're based in Hong Kong, while 2 of our 4 children, actually now 3 of our 4 children, are based in Australia, plus our siblings, our parents, and lots of other connections. One of the benefits of slowing down was that it provided an opportunity to prioritize writing. Fortunately, as I mentioned before, at the start of the year, I had registered for the Creatives Workshop, a new virtual program that helped to form habits that enabled the completion of personal projects. Parallel, new connections were converting into collaborations, highlighting that the ingredients for productive accidents could accelerate virtually. For example, someone in the Creatives Workshop mentioned a series of dinner events in New York called Gratitude and Pasta. This caught my attention because several years earlier, I had initiated an ambitious gratitude project to write 10,000 thank yous. And if you do 1 thank you per day, that will take 10,000 thank yous will actually take you 27 years to complete. So really, it's a lifetime sort of project. I reached out to the founder of Gratitude and Pasta and arranged to virtually attend some of the dinners, so via Zoom. So he was doing dinner at, 8 p.m. New York time. That was my 8 a.m. the next day. So he had dinner, I had breakfast. And one of the dinners converted into a guided walking tour of Taiwan. That was Chris Davis. The following week, I thought, well, let's play with that idea. How about I do a virtual walking tour of Hong Kong? And during that walk, it's when Chris Schembra said, oh, you should meet Chris Palmore. So he sent like a one-word introduction via email, something like connect or something like that. Literally, just that one word. And, our curiosity continued, and Chris and I organized a Skype call or FaceTime or something. And that's when I started to learn about Chris's project. And since then, we've collaborated on several, including a bunch of podcasts. So we've done about 13 episodes interviewing people that were featured in Productive Accidents. And I've also contributed to his book, the first one that he mentioned, Dear Gratitude, an anthology. Even better, our eldest daughter and several friends contributed to that book as well. So what I love about Chris's book and the format is, people may not be thinking that they could write a full book, but if you can write 100 words or 1,000 words, here's a baby step to training wheels to becoming a published author. And you are published because you're in a book that you can buy and hold. And I think that's pretty cool. Fast forward, and I was able to complete the writing and editing process for Productive Accidents, get the book printed, start distributing via bookstores in Hong Kong, and sell digital copies directly from my website, peterbwilliams.com. Parallel, it's provided an opportunity to play with ways to convert the content into 10 different formats, including digital books, physical books, an audio book, even a translation into Vietnamese, just as an experiment. And, it was a productive accident how that happened. Overall, creative projects and new connections accelerated in 2020. But the thing I'm most grateful for is how our extended families helped to ensure that our eldest daughter in Melbourne, our son at boarding school in Sydney, and our parents in Armidale stay safe and well. They were also able to carefully converge and celebrate at Christmas. Meanwhile, our second daughter managed to navigate her IB, and our youngest daughter made a smooth transition to start a new school. So despite not being able to travel and missing several events, it turns out that by keeping things in perspective, there was a lot to be grateful for in 2020. Our health, our families, our friends, new connections, new collaborations, new adventures. One thing is certain, we will never take physical reunions with family and friends for granted again. That's it.
This is great, man. Thanks for reading that. I love it. I loved your little commentary too. That'll be interesting. when I put it with the audiobook. I have to say
Cool.
it's unabridged now. It's good. Thanks, man. All right. Well, I know we're taking so much more time here. So, Gail, are you ready to read your essay? Your letter?
I am.
All right. Let's. Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. I will preface this by saying I can recall when I wrote the letter, I had just watched the movie Ratatouille, which is about a rat who's a chef. And so this letter was heavily inspired by cooking themes. So here we go. Dear 2020, you served a plateful. COVID, riots, internal and external world angst, as abrasive as an untuned orchestra. The aroma funneled through a leaky stovepipe to a fearful audience. Or am I interpreting events incorrectly? You plated your main ingredients with lots of white porcelain space. Were you offering possibility, an opportunity to color outside of the lines? Long before I had any whiff of what you'd chop and mix, I chose courage as the meal I'd eat at your table, unafraid to reflect what mirrored on my surface. I'd be as clear as a water-filled crystal goblet. Come what may, I intended to see friends instead of foes. What happened when I chose radical acceptance without resistance? I connected with people, so many people. People wanting to grow. People open to differences. People I would never have met without you, 2020. Thank you for serving me as only you could. Warm regards, Gail.
That was beautiful. Thanks, Gail. I love it. Thank you. I love reading. I thank you for even remembering where you wrote it. I love that the little added part there. All right. Well,
fantastic, Gail. I agree. It was so much fun, and I love the way you read it.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, Diana's up here. We've got one more reading of the book, and then we will be moving on to Peter's part.
All right. This with saying thank you, Chris. This is a story I've never read aloud, and it was a letter I needed to write that I probably never would have written without your invitation. Dear 2020, you took away both of my parents this year, and yet I am grateful. Grateful to sit next to my mother's bird-like bones, her hand in mine, seeing her breathing cease and peace settle over the house. Grateful for my brother on the other side of that bed, holding my other hand as we sang her favorite vagabond song. Far I long to go today, where my heart is ever yearning, far to where the seagulls cry, to the hills with sunset burning. All just after my mornings in hospice with Dad, whose distress was mind-grappling, but somehow eased by the familiar energy of his daughter, his partner, his son, and his friends, who came with the regularity of clock chimes. His bed rolled before the fireplace for cozy warmth, sunlight pouring through the window. This hard year, I felt grateful that they had good deaths. And make no mistake, death is a force that gives us meaning, but it also holds life's moments in stark relief so that we can see more clearly. To feel the taste of a sweet orange just picked from the tree, my mother's greatest yearning after surgery, her face in rapture for that moment. Even to smell the oils as I peeled it for her and see how grateful she was that the doctors finally allowed it. to feel the warmth of the sun as my father sat outside in his wheelchair, his eyes closed, his own energy dissolving into that of the desert air, becoming one again with the universe. I'm not sure I'm going to get through this part, but okay, I'll give it a try. Grateful even for the hard moment of returning to my family to tell my children that not just one, but both of their grandparents had died. The kids' little bodies racked with unaccustomed pain and grief. Their arms around me during a year when tides of grief returned again and again. Those little arms so strong in love. We laugh and we joke about seeing the end of this shitty little creep of a year. But it has been like Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, showing us we are frail and ugly, greedy and ashamed, but still beautiful. I am grateful for a year that showed me so much beauty through loss and through love.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you, Diana.
Well done, Diana. It's amazing.
Beautiful.
I wanted to thank you for thanking me. Thank you. I'm going to take one more minute I wanted to share this with you personally. I have a memory of reading your letter that I will never, ever forget. So it was New Year's Day. I woke up and I don't normally reach for my phone, and I did. And I saw that there were three emails in my mailbox from people giving letters to Dear 2020. And this is specifically to Peter, and Peter's heard this before. I read your letter half sitting in my bed, and as soon as I started reading that first opening passage made my body change. And when I got done reading it, because my wife was next to me, I was keeping myself in as far as vocally, but my body was shaking so much that she rolled over and said, "Are you okay?" I woke her up because of the feeling that your letter gave me, and I'll never forget it. And it was so beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, Chris, this is probably a good opportunity for you to explain, how did you start your gratitude project? I think it's really powerful.
Okay, I'll spend a minute. I know we only have so much time left. My whole project, started in 2013 when I made a conscious decision to write a letter of gratitude to my mother on my birthday. So, December 30th, 2013, I got up really early and I simplistically wrote a gratitude letter, and I put it on her Facebook page because I wanted her to find it. So I wanted it to be a surprise, and I wanted it to be public. And normally I would have my parents would give me a call mid-morning saying happy birthday to me. I didn't get my call. So I decided to call my dad's cell phone because I wanted to ask him, I didn't want to talk to mom until she had a chance to read the letter. And I got my dad on the phone. And after he said happy birthday, I asked him if mom had read the letter. And he said that she had, and that she needed time with it, and that she couldn't talk to me. And to give a little bit of preference, a statement like that would make sense if this was a long lost son. But this is somebody that at a very early age, I had no problem kissing on the cheek in public or saying, "I love you." And I'm sure I talked to my mom the day before. So hearing that I simplistically words on a screen had left her basically in a state of not being able to talk to me, speechless, really, it created something. And I like to tell people that writing a letter of gratitude is not magic, but what it can do is sheer magic. And, we met later that day, and it encapsulated a moment, and I didn't know, obviously we never know, right? And thinking more about even Diana's letter, right? We never know what the future is going to hold. We never know it, right? So it's like when you reach out in love, I didn't know at that moment that 4 months later, I didn't know that my mom's cancer was going to come back, and that, she'd pass away in hospice care with my dad on the floor with her April 30th, literally 4 months later to the day. But what it did is allowed me to realize so much more about how important that experience was and what it meant, right? And because of that, when at her funeral, my dad asked me, what would you like to say? I didn't have anything I wanted to say, but this letter kept coming up because it was so special. So I had my cousin read the letter to me and the people at my mom's funeral. So now this letter took on a whole new meaning, right? When you hear the words, I'm going to tell you I love you more often. I'm going to spend more time with you. I'm going to make you more proud. And it's April 30th and my mom's body's in the room. So speaking to my journey, and I'm not taking any more time with, we'll just say that led me to write a letter for my dad that led me to go, what if I could just initiate people to have this experience? Long story short, 6 years later, dozens of interviews, traveling the country, hundreds of videos, to me, millions of moments of gratitude led to writing a book, Dear Gratitude, to get people to do this. It led me to inspiring space. I just want to be a gratitude conductor. I just want to create space where people can share what they're grateful for to come into that moment. I want to thank all three of you because you literally sat down and wrote a letter to Dear 2020. I opened the space just by putting it out in the world, and then you guys painted the colors on it. You guys did that. And that's all I want to do with my life. It brings me more joy than anything. It is the drug of choice, it is the dragon I chase. So thank you.
Very cool. All right. So what is my book about, and why the hell did I write this thing? And I kind of already gave you a bit of a preview, I guess, in the reading of the letter. But basically, it was inspired by an idea from business school, where a professor had gone back, Ron Bird had gone back 100 years to look at how does innovation happen. And he looked at people like Henry Ford, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, everyone in between, and he tried to scientifically, I guess, work out what was the common ingredient across these people. Because in real time, they were just like us, right? What made them a little bit more unique? People might have thought, okay, these guys were geniuses or they had some unfair advantage. But in reality, they just shared a similar sort of curiosity or mindset around building really diverse networks. And instead of going to work and just hanging around their cubicle and only knowing people in their department or their company or their industry, they built bridges across industries and across regions, and they paid attention to interesting things that were happening in other industries. And then they made them better. For instance, Steve Jobs, he went to an R&D lab, I think, for Fuji Xerox or something, and they had this device where you wiggle it on a desk, and it makes the cursor move on a screen, and that's the mouse, the original mouse. And they didn't know what to do with it, but he was the one that had the insight to go, that'd be cool in my garage. Someone had to then do the execution, but it was more about having that insight. But wow, this means we don't have to write code anymore. We just click on things, and even a child could learn how to, operate a computer. And then you can see that same idea flow through all of their products, whether it's the iPod with a single button that controls everything, or the iPhone and everything else. So the big idea from all of this research that Professor Burt distilled, he put it into one sentence, which was put yourself at risk of productive accident. And you break that sentence down, put yourself at risk. So you literally have to make an intentional decision to join a random virtual book tour, for instance, on a Sunday, without having any expectations, but realizing that it might lead to something magical. Serendipity, connection, lifelong friendship, collaboration. And when I moved from Singapore, where I finished that program, to Hong Kong 11 years ago, the best thing that he did was we had that sentence. He distilled 100 years of research into a single sentence that became my filter for pretty much every decision since. So one example, I joined a tennis team and they invited me to be a captain. And my instant reaction was, that sounds like a bunch of admin. Why would I want to do that? But then I thought, well, let's just play with this idea a little bit more. And I said, look, tell me more about the team. There were 40 guys from fresh grads out of university up to retired partners at law firms and investment firms, lots of different nationalities, lots of different industries, lots of different skill sets. And I just thought, you know what, that looks like a recipe for productive accidents. I have to say yes. And I wrote a survey to the team. within 5 minutes, our family had our first snowboarding trip planned to Niseko because one of the guys happened to do property development over there. That Niseko adventure turned into a summer camp for our children, internship for our oldest daughter. Fast forward, we ended up buying land and building a house. We're next door neighbors to, that tennis player. And that whole experience has created an adventure. So to me, this recipe for innovation is identical to turning your life into an adventure. And when I met Diana, when she spoke at TEDx, I attended because I had a personal friend who was speaking that I brought out from New York, George Matthew, to speak at TEDx Wanchai. And, even that was amazing because I'm on the board of an NGO in New York called Music for Life International. And how that happened was a series of productive accidents. And what was interesting was George went back to New York. A month later, he wrote to me in an email and said, hey, the woman that coached me for my TEDx talk is thinking about doing an NGO. Maybe you could have a coffee. That's when I met Victoria and her very early stage idea of creating Resolve Foundation. And within half an hour, I could tell that she was creating the conditions for productive accidents, bringing people together that from different backgrounds, difficult backgrounds sometimes. They might have been refugees, asylum seekers, domestic workers, ethnic minorities, but bringing them together to give them a leadership program that would help take their level of impact to another level by giving them, training on strategy and how to deal with the media and how to look after themselves and how to do, everything around that. And I could just tell, look, I don't even know who these people are that are going to apply to this program, but I'm pretty sure because of their like-minded interest around the cause, so for each year they do a different topic. The first year was overcoming everyday racism. It's kind of like, 3 years ago, not many people were talking about racism at dinner parties, but now, obviously, it's a bit more important. So that was a brave decision. The next year, they spoke about ending gender-based violence, and the most recent one was on disabilities and empowerment. And fast forward, I'm on the board of Resolve Foundation, and there's no way that would have happened if I didn't have that framework in my brain. So this book is basically 10 years of all of these examples that just kept on emerging, and it became so predictable and repeatable that I could spend 4 hours talking about it, or I could write it down. That's basically the trade-off. And so I'll read you the back of it, and it'll just reinforce, I guess, what I've said. So productive accident shows how a framework for curiosity and creativity can also be a recipe for innovation and adventure. It provides an actionable playbook that can be applied by individuals, families, or companies. The more you experiment with these ideas, the more you realize that serendipity can be a predictable and repeatable experience. At a deeper level, productive accidents provides a way to maintain a growth mindset, build an authentic network, and contribute across a wide range of interests and causes. At the extreme, it also provides a way to beat a midlife crisis, survive a tragedy, and live a playful and generous life. So I grew up on a BMX bike and a skateboard. I always throw it out there just in case any listeners are into that. That means we're going to be lifelong friends. But those sports provided this dynamic stream of creativity and innovation. Every month when we'd get this BMX Action magazine, there'd be new technology, new tricks, new techniques. And that sort of fed my imagination. It made me a better reader, it made me a better writer. And it's, given me a taste for creativity and design and a taste for all things independent, including music, art, and people. And an interest in innovation and how it happens has been a constant companion that forms the core of the book. And along the way, Catherine and I, my wife, we developed global careers in finance. We've worked in Sydney, London, Singapore, and Hong Kong. We've got 4 children and a large extended family. Catherine's the oldest of 7. I'm the youngest of 6. And we've got a long list of causes that we care about, including equality, education, empowerment, entrepreneurship, and the environment. And I'm going to throw in alliteration as well. So 5 E's right there. That's pretty good. Bonus points for 5 E's. And, this little experiment that we're doing right now is an extension of these productive accidents. It's like, let's just do it. We've had zero preparation. We've sent some WhatsApp messages, and that's how Chris has been such an important partner in this. I've got the people, he's got the production and the technology, and we're just iterating in real time. So this is like a minimum viable product or startup of one, where I'm trying to turn the book into lots of different formats. I've also started working with Nusha, thanks to Gail and Chris for the introduction. We've got children's books that we're going to play with. We've got, I've already got the audio book and other things. So to me, this is just an extension of the adventure so far, and you can see it going into perpetuity. So I think, Diana, you said 100-year life. I always joke that we're going to reach 120. Surely we can have 3 or 4 careers in amongst that. I know you just turned your nose up because maybe quality of life may not be too good at that stage, but anyway.
No, I was thinking you're going to be 120. I'm pretty sure you're going to live so much longer than me because you're so energetic and you have so many projects.
Today was extreme. This is busier than usual, but this morning, Ruby and I, our youngest daughter, got up at 5 a.m. to ride. She rode on the back of the Vespa out to Checo as part of the annual Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, which is a global movement that helps raise funding for cancer research and mental health, in particular suicide prevention and things like that. 650 cities worldwide, people riding classic motorbikes and coming together, forming a community. And so we did that. Then I had to rush back and play in a tennis tournament. So managed to make the finals, didn't quite get the win, but it was pretty good. We were down 2-7. We got the 7-all. We lost 7-9. Still pretty good. And then come back here and experiment with this little podcast. So to me, Hong Kong actually does make some of these things possible. I think of it as networking nirvana. You can literally do 3 events in one evening. And so, yeah, that's one of the benefits. I think Hong Kong has accelerated some of these experiments as well.
It's beautiful, man. Thanks. Somebody commented on here. It looks like it came in right after Diana read her letter. So I just wanted to show this here. This, which I've never used these features before. Isn't that nice? Okay.
Yeah, Eileen is awesome. So I met her through Deanna Katz. She introduced us, and then Eileen came along to a Resolve event. She became a supporter. We had lunch only a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about board governance and expansion and some of the stuff she's been doing with the American Club Foundation. And actually today, here's a productive accident. Someone approached me for the club that I play tennis at and say, look, we're forming a foundation. Would you like to go on the board? I'm like, hell yeah. More productive accidents in the future. Why not? So anyway, good things.
Well, I have something to add, and it's great that Eileen dialed in. It's very sweet because I met her through something completely different. And I already knew Peter, who graciously spoke to my Future Proof course. And Eileen is taking it. And before I could even say anything about Peter's book, Productive Accidents, when it came out, I think I missed one of their catch-up calls that they do together. And I saw in our WhatsApp group already, I'm buying Productive Accidents, Vikram in Austin, Texas, like all these people around the world, because Eileen had mentioned it on our call. So,
amazing
how things come together.
And then I introduced Gail to Eileen, and Gail, over to you. There's some more magic here. Wait for this.
Okay, so I signed up for an art class, an online 4-week art class with a little bit of writing. And then Eileen signed up, as well as her mother. And I also got to interview Eileen's mom and write a little story about our conversation as well.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing.
Chris, I think you got to meet Eileen.
Totally feeling left out here. I'm thinking what? I'm not good enough? What happened here? Okay, well, she showed up she did comment on the podcast. I guess that's technically she's brought in now. So
you'll meet her. She's moving back. Well, she's heading to New York, I think. She might have been, actually, she's there because she just posted sent a photo of me. She and Deanna, that I just mentioned before, had lunch together, so that she sent a really cool photo of them together. So yeah, she's in your time zone, so you should definitely reach out and have a chat.
I'd like to do before we close up here is I'd love to get a photo of everyone holding their books like so we can get a screenshot. Everybody kind of get their book, something like that.
There we go.
That's good. Nice smile. All right. Yeah, that's great. Sweet. That'll be a nice screenshot.
Totally. And I set up a Facebook group just, I don't know, an hour or two ago. Invite everyone and anyone because it's public, and you know, episode 1 is going to be in there very soon. It's already live streamed, right? So yeah, thank you again, Chris and Diana and Gail. This is fun. That went pretty quick in my mind.
Likewise, yeah. Thank you all so much. Oh,
To be
Diana,
continued.
your mic was still off.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
To be
you.
continued. Thanks again, guys.
All right. Well, I'm Chris. It's Peter and Gail and Diana. Just telling you all have a wonderful day, and thanks for joining us. And we are officially